Hey guys, so I guess I'm at a point now where I'm ready to, I guess call this a part two to this build log here with the water cooled build in the Fractal design Define Mini C. As you can see, probably some things look a little bit different than what I had originally said that they would look like. I've had to make some changes that I'll kind of go over here, but most importantly, I do have all of the components installed now at least. I did that earlier in the week so that I could get my loop figured out, which was very challenging. Originally, I wasn't really planning on having this radiator up here for a couple reasons. One, I thought this was going to go in a different build, but things changed. So I did get the 120 rad. I did try a few configurations and I just really couldn't get it to work out the way that I wanted to. So I went ahead and scrapped that and put this guy in here, and I think I finally have it figured out the way I want it to be. So just a quick note on something here. So as you can see, these aren't the latest greatest parts. This is a Z77 motherboard with a 3770K, so not terrible, but this build isn't being put together to be the newest, most powerful build, mainly using components that we already have and then trying to create more of a showpiece out of it. This is a GTX 980, and so previously the person that had been using this motherboard had one of those big ass Zotac Amp Extreme cards in here, and it had kind of worn out the PCIe slot. So all I did was I took a piece of, I don't know how well you can see it, but I took a piece of PEG tubing and cut it to length and used it under here to prop up the video card. So it's nice and straight in there now, because that would have drove me insane seeing the sag on that card. So real quickly, originally I was going to have a D5 pump in here, and all the different things I was trying out, I just couldn't really get it to work out the way I wanted to. I had the DDC on hand, so I went ahead and just swapped it out. Gave me a lot more space to work with, and I think it's going to work out really well. If you can see in the back, I'll flip this case around so you can see, but I do have a drain port set up back there. So what's going to happen is that obviously the reservoir is going to feed directly into the pump here. It's going to come out that backside, go into this radiator. It's going to come out here. This is going to come up, over, and then in to the CPU block. And then it's going to come out to the front and over and then up in this port here. That way I can get some nicer bends as opposed to going with these tighter bends. As a general rule of thumb, I try to avoid doing any bends that are going to be tight right before they go into a fitting. I either try to avoid that by using a 90-degree fitting or just reconfiguring the loop so that it may not be the shortest distance, but at least it allows you to make nicer bends, which is going to pay off in the long run. But then it's going to come out of the back one here, come over, down and in the graphics card, and it's going to come out of the graphics card, come over, and it's going to feed in the back into the reservoir. And then I'll be able to tip this on its side and fill the reservoir as well. So I think everything's going to work out really well. This case is small, it's a tight squeeze, but so far everything seems to be working out just fine. I think that the loop is going to look pretty good in here. There's going to be a lot of tubing showing, but that's a good thing since I'm using the Aurora coolant. I want to see that effect as much as possible. And funny enough, these older motherboards, these Asus motherboards that have these blue colors on here and they could never seem to match them, I think that's going to be okay, because between when I do my custom sleeving and then with the Aurora coolant, all the different shades of blue I think will just work together nicely, and it won't end up really being an eyesore in the end. So just to kind of flip this around and show you guys what I got going on the back side here. I apologize. I'm actually working on building a lazy Susan right now to make this a little bit easier, but for the time being. So I've got, these are all my front panel. I haven't messed with those yet, but I do have all of my fan cables cut down to length with my splitter installed here. This is just a PWM hub by Mod My Toys. So it's just a four fan hub, which is exactly what I needed. And then of course this guy here is going into the PWM header on the motherboard. So obviously there's very limited space to work with in the back here as far as cables go, so I want it to be as tidy as possible. So that's why I took the time to cut all these fan cables down to the exact length to these things are a pain to work with. These really small wires, they're a bitch to strip and then reclamp, but the end result is worthwhile. I'll be doing the same. There's nothing you can do about the USB 3.0 header, but and I'm not gonna mess with cutting down the audio just because it's just a lot of pins. It's a pain, but I will sleeve that. And then the same with my front panel connectors. Those I probably will cut down because there's not as many pins to worry about, but I'll get those sleeved as well. I don't even think you're gonna see that a whole lot from the front, but I'll know it's there, and it's just kind of one of those things where it'll make me feel better. Anyway, still got to sleeve the pump cables, cut those to length. You can see where I have the drain port back here. This is going to work out so well. Guys, I can't stress enough the importance of installing a drain valve. The thing is, and one thing that people don't really think about, but the most important reason to have this is that if you were to discover a leak somewhere in the loop, you obviously want to get that drained as quickly as possible without having to go through a major process of disconnecting tubes and potentially creating an even worse problem. So by having a drain port, it allows you to quickly get at least the majority of the fluid out of the loop, so that you can potentially stop that leak from doing any further harm or creating a bigger mess that you don't really want to deal with. And then of course, the obvious reason is that when it comes time to flush the system, I typically flush it once or twice before I add my final coolant in, just to make sure, especially if you're reusing any parts, just to make sure there's no leftover dye or anything in the system that you don't want kind of messing up the current loop. But that's pretty much where I'm at right now. I'm going to use some acrylic. I need to create a panel down here. That this is a little flimsy with all these holes in it. So just to shore that up, I'm create a panel here that I'll use to directly mount the pump to. Get these cables done. Obviously I need to sorry about this. Obviously I need to get my tubing ran. I probably am going to go ahead and cover up this shroud. Maybe I won't cover up the front. Maybe I'll try to preserve, the look of the original Fractal design here, but I will most likely at least add a panel to the top. Maybe I'll see what that looks like first. Although I do need to create some sort of shroud for my lighting. I'm not sure. I'm probably going to have to try to have light coming in from this side over here, and then maybe some from across the bottom. I really want to illuminate the reservoir because that's where you're going to see the majority of that coolant swirling around. So I don't know, that's still a challenge I have to overcome, but I really would like to get this build pretty much close to done, if not done by the weekend, but that might be a lofty expectation considering other things I have going on in my life. So anyway, I guess that's going to be a wrap on part 2 here. As always, if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. I might not always do the best job replying to comments on these videos because I don't always get the notifications, and if I forget to go look for them, it may seem like I'm ignoring you guys, but you can always catch me on Instagram or Twitter or any of those things if you have any questions about this stuff. But anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. You guys have a nice evening.